Hi, welcome. It's Roy and Val, and we're back again to talk about questions and answers. So we asked
We're in a
if
little
you guys,
different situation. You
Yeah,
see this? This
it
is like
a
our
lot
leisurely.
different, right? I know. More casual.
More casual, that's
maybe a little
what it is,
too
yeah.
casual, perhaps. But so we asked for questions, and we got a lot of really nice questions. So we're going to do our best to answer them. I think there's a couple that we don't know the answer, I think, but
I think there was one in particular we didn't even talk about, which we probably should have.
Good. Well, I guess we'll figure it out. But we will definitely give you an opinion, right? I mean, that's one thing that Val and I have is an opinion. So,
Yes, we do.
no matter how right or wrong it might be. But so, do you want to just dive in with them, right?
Right. So we printed them out in case we didn't make these up, but we printed these out just so we can have something to go from. So the very first one is from Craig in New Jersey. How do you get patina to completely blacken zinc channel? The black patina we use on lead lines doesn't work well on zinc.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a good one.
That's right.
Everybody runs into that same sort of issue. I think the main thing is, I'm not sure, Craig, what kind of patina you're using, but if you're using the one just for solder, the black patina just for solder, yeah, that does not work very well on the zinc at all.
They make a specific one.
Yeah.
Is it here?
Yeah, it's right there. So, yeah, I thought I'd grab and show it to you guys.
This is the one we sell, but this is, it says actually on the bottom for zinc. So that's really the one you want to look for.
It is much better, yeah. I mean, it's
better.
a lot better than the
It's
soldering.
better,
But as Val and I were talking about just a little while ago, it still is a challenge. I mean, I think for most people, would you agree that
Yes.
trying to get a really nice, deep black patina on zinc is it's not easy.
No.
So, but I think I got a few tips. You know, one is you want to really make sure that the zinc is really, you've cleaned it really well. And that includes using, flux removers, right, when you're done soldering your piece. Which I grabbed a couple, which I'll probably show again at some point, right? These are just two different types of flux removers that we offer here at Delphi.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the main things about them is what they do is they neutralize the acid that's in the flux, right? So that your solder looks better, easier to apply patinas.
And it really helps prevent that oxidation too after, cleaning it well and then polishing it. That's the whole thing too.
But the other thing too I found with zinc, so zinc comes, to us at 6 foot lengths in boxes, right? And, from the manufacturer, and it sometimes is a little oily. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it has something to do with the manufacturing process. And so sometimes just cleaning it even with that is not good enough. I know especially when I'm trying to do a black patina, I use something like a degreaser, like Dawn dish soap, also on the zinc. I think that's a nice way of trying to remove any oils that are on there. And the other thing you could do is use a steel wool. So it's, if you're not familiar with working with steel wool, it comes in different grades. They use zeros to kind of describe coarse to fine, right? So 4 zeros is the finest they make. And if you take that and, kind of rough up and clean up and your zinc,
it doesn't really scratch it either.
No, that's why you want the really fine
zeros. It won't scratch it. So,
and then it just helps grab the patina a little bit better. But even then, after doing all those things,
maybe it's gonna. It's just one of those things that can be. I've heard over the years too. Sometimes people say some kinds of chemicals in their water, hard water, all this stuff. When you clean it, can add to
city water.
City water, whatever.
Really
so there's all kinds of things. So there is one sort of fail-safe way to turn it completely black, right?
Okay, right. Paint it, right?
Paint
so
it.
I know I talked to
which sounds funny, but we know lots of customers who do it, and it actually can look really nice.
Yeah, if you want, a real nice even look, that's not a bad way of going about it. But try the zinc patina. If you like the results, then great. If not, then there's alternatives.
There's options, right?
Good.
Okay.
Do you want me to read the next one?
Sure.
This is from Sundell from Wisconsin. Sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly. If making a smaller Suncatcher, is it okay to just tin the edges? And we both say yes. So,
well,
next question.
Yeah, there you go. It is, because I know, especially like when they refer to a small Suncatcher could have all kinds of, whether it's a little hummingbird or, it can have all kinds of weird, edges and angles. And so to try to put came around that is is not going to be feasible, at least not with a zinc cane, not with a hard cane. But we did grab this too, just to let you know, we do sell this little, I don't want to knock everything over because we've kind of surrounded it.
That's okay.
This is called hobby lead. And you can see how pliable it is and how thin it is. I don't know how close we can get. Okay. But you can see that I'll just kind of like wrap it around my finger. It is really smooth and easy to bend. So if you really felt like you wanted to put a border around it, a little Suncatcher or something, this would be kind of a good option, right? Yep. Just to kind of mold it. You can just mold it all the way around, tack it in a few places. And, this is small enough too that this isn't something that needs to be stretched. We had that question just recently. Someone said
about
how to stretch this, and it's just so thin you don't really need to stretch it. Yep. So anyway, so that's an option too.
Yeah, I guess the thing that Val just pointed out a second ago, the question does say a smaller Suncatcher, so I guess that's kind of relative, right? I'm not sure how small you mean, but you'd be surprised that you could probably do Suncatchers like this without doing anything to the outside edge. Would you agree? Right?
I would agree. I think the tricky part is the rings, how to hang it.
Yeah, where to hang them.
Yeah, you don't want to just hang it from the foil on the.
Yeah, don't hang from the foil.
You got to kind of embed your rings into a seam or something, because I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, that's where the strength is.
Yeah.
And if you're going really bigger than that, then people often put copper wire around the outside, which I didn't bring any in. We have something that Delphi does sell, right? So, and then you can just solder it to the outside edge. It just kind of reinforces that edge if you're concerned about it. But again, if it's smaller, really you can just tin it, right? Just solder the outside edge and it should be good.
I made a ton of them that way.
Yeah. What? Just soldering the outside?
Yeah, just soldering.
Oh yeah. See, you got the next question.
Okay, sorry, I was spacing out. Okay, April from Virginia. Over time, hanging in my window, my solder lines seem to be getting dull and tarnished. How can I prevent that?
Not hang them in a window?
That's right. Well, that's just happens,
I think
right?
a lot of people run into this,
it's just like a tarnish, and tarnishing is a little different than oxidation. Oxidation would require a little more situation cleaning-wise and stuff. But I think that if it's just tarnished, then you can just polish it back up. So with and I know you suggest the Simichrome polish.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what you're.
Yeah, because I can tell you that if you do have some really icky places, I mean, like dark and not just overall tarnish, sometimes you need to do something like with the Simichrome polish or something. But often, I'll just take mine down and just use some of the finishing compound, which is kind of like a wax, a polishing wax, and just polish. And it takes the tarnish right off. So
yeah, I guess like lots of things, right, guys. So it depends on how tarnished is it, sort of thing. But just briefly, we just talked about it just a few seconds ago. But important to always clean it beforehand. Remove the flux with a nice flux remover. I think that helps, and it will definitely minimize tarnishing. I guess it also Val and I talk about tarnishing and oxidation as two slightly different things. But either of them are affecting the look of the solder, right? So one thing you can do is use something like a Simichrome polish. Now this is strictly a polish, so it is to make, if you want your solder seams silver and really shiny looking, the Simichrome polish does that. Now what it doesn't do is protect it. So it'll make it shiny, but if you didn't do anything else, over time it will just tarnish from being exposed to the air. So then, as Val mentioned, we would use something like a finishing compound, right? This is stained glass finishing compound. And it's a wax. I mean, I think we sell 3 or 4 different brands of it, so they all work great. And it's like waxing your car, right? So you'd wax the piece, and what that does is protect the solder seams from air, right? So oxygen can't get to the metal and start,
it actually puts like kind of like a wax coating over it.
It definitely does.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because I think when you use it, especially after. If you need to rub pretty hard, I mean, and the longer you rub, the shinier things become. So I think sometimes people don't realize that it's not like instantaneous like a patina is. You got to rub it and you got to kind of buff it, and then it really can shine things up really nicely. So and then also protect, which is a kind of a good thing.
Yep, so it just stays shinier longer.
Takes longer, yeah, it takes longer for it to tarnish.
But like you point out, I mean, it's not uncommon for people to go back years later and repolish a piece, right? Especially if it's been if you cleaned it or done some things to it. But
Okay, it's you.
good. Thanks for the question. Is it my turn? So where am I at? Linda from Minnesota. Why, when I'm tinning the edge of my project, does the foil lift? Right. So yeah, we were talking about this too just a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it's irritating.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
I think probably the biggest issue, I think anytime you're soldering, even if it's the middle of the panel, not just the outside edge, but that if you start seeing foil lifting, it's too hot, right? So you're
Burning that adhesive.
Yeah, melting the adhesive from the foil, and so then the foil starts lifting. It's a hanging out too long in one spot is what it really is. So when you're doing, soldering the edge of a piece, I know the temptation is you're trying to make it look perfectly smooth, so we're always, kind of overworking it might be a good way of putting that.
Right.
So, go quick, and then if you need to come back and retouch something up, let it cool a bit before you do it.
Right.
And then that will kind of minimize
And
that
I think,
foil.
I think you and I, in fact, I know you and I differ a bit on the amount of flux that we use.
Yep.
And but I will say that if you flux pretty good, you can go fast. I mean, you can tin pretty quickly, which is meaning you don't have to stay in one place very long. If that is somehow interfering then down the road because you have so much flux on there, I'm not talking about, like soaking it, but I brush it pretty heavily just so that when I get that dot of solder, I can move quick and not stay in one place. You can wipe it off. I mean, it's not like you have to wash it off. You could just, if you have excess, you can just take a rag or a paper towel and wipe some of it off. But having enough flux is going to really help your cause when you're tinning.
Yep. And then moving quicker, I think is probably, we both agree on that, right?
Which is, exactly what that flux thing is.
Good. That's up to you, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
I can read them all if you want. I can read them all.
Okay, Mark from Michigan. I've been working on a stained glass piece and it's getting pretty big. I'm wondering when and where I should be reinforcing it.
Man, thanks for the question, though,
Yeah,
Mark.
that's an
we appreciate
age-old
it. And then
question,
I know we
too.
get this one all the time. Reinforcing. I think it's probably every stained glass person's concern, right? Is when do I start reinforcing? Well, it's probably more involved than we have time for, to be honest. But I will give you some of the tips or kind of the pointers, right? So a lot of it depends on where the panel is going. I mean, so if it's an autonomous panel, which means it's just hanging in front of another existing window, it probably doesn't need any reinforcing, to be honest, unless you were doing something 14 feet tall or something, right? Because there's not a lot of stress subjected to it. If you're installing it in an opening, then that's when you have to start thinking about reinforcing. Like, let's say you did your front door, right, where people open and close it. It's something that you actually, like I said, put into the existing window frame. And so there are some basic sort of recommendations. One is that piece, the guy that taught me many years ago used to say if it was 12 square feet or larger. So that would be a 3 by 4 foot panel, right? Which is a decent size, right?
Yes.
Pretty good size. Then you would start thinking about reinforcing. I lately read something that they said 14 perimeter feet, which would be measuring the outside edge, right, of the whole piece. And so, interesting enough, that's also...
I was going to say, does that equate
also 14 feet,
yeah.
Isn't that interesting? 3 by 4 is also 14 feet. So if one side isn't 3 feet, I wouldn't even worry about it, to be honest. And again, even then, if it was 3 by 4 feet and it was just hanging in front of another window, probably not a reason to reinforce. But
ways to reinforce would be...
Yeah, but there are ways to reinforce, right? I mean, I can tell you the most traditional way is using what's called rebars. And if you think of like church windows, I mean, the rebars there are steel. They're nice and they are into the frame of the pit of the window. That's what people sometimes get confused about, right? They sometimes think I just have to attach it to the back of the glass. In theory, it really should go into the frame, and that's where it gains notched into the frame. So the recommendation then again on the reinforcing would be the thinking is every 8 to 18 inches, depending on how complicated your design is. It also depends on whether it's lead or you're doing copper foil, right? Copper foil is a lot stiffer than lead and doesn't require as much reinforcing. So again, the kind of general advice is about you would reinforce every 18 inches. So again, if you think of that 3 feet, that's when you start reinforcing. You're reinforcing right in the middle, right, 18 inches. I grabbed a piece of zinc rebar just for the fun of it. If you guys aren't familiar with it, this is something that Delphi sells. This is a flat zinc rebar. This would get soldered into the back of the panel, right? All the rebar is always in the back of the panel, or to the better way of putting it, to the interior side of the panel, right? So again, if it was a window that you did that was facing the elements, right, you would do this on the inside, not the side facing the elements, right, because it would approach a lot more. This gets soldered into the seams, and you just solder it into a joint. Wherever a solder line would cross this, that's where you would solder into it.
Yeah.
It cuts pretty easily.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, too, people don't sometimes want to use that because if they're using transparent glass, it puts a line through their glass, right? So if so this back in the day when I taught more of the stained glass, I'd say if you're doing a piece that is going to be of size where we feel like it needs to be reinforced somewhat, you want to think about that in your design. Beforehand, because you don't want to have that bar go. I mean, the place where the rebar goes isn't sort of subject to wherever you think it fits in your panel, right? I mean, it's got it, like you said, divides up in certain areas. So just know that's one of the things that people kind of struggle with. So if you know that ahead of time, you can actually kind of incorporate that into your design if you want to.
Yep. So it's less noticeable. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I grabbed a couple other things for people that are. This is a product called Strongline. What's really nice about it is it's steel that has a copper coating on it. So like if you're a copper foil person, it will just solder right into the seam. Or if you're lead came, this slides into the opening, the channel of the lead came, and so it's invisible. This is something similar called Restrip. It's copper, so it's a nice heavy duty copper. Does the same thing as a Strongline. Not as strong as the Strongline, but
easier to use.
A lot easier to use. So it bends easier if you're trying to go around some complicated sort of design. The other thing real quick is if this was your stained glass panel, right, it always goes horizontal, right? The reinforcing goes horizontal.
Yeah.
And it has to go from edge to edge. So if you're coming here and then stopping it and then starting it up somewhere else, it really kind of defeats the purpose of the reinforcement, right? So all the way across. Again, I told you this could be be a little bit longer than just,
unfortunately,
it
seems like that's just it. There's so much that sometimes it's just hard to come up with one or two sentences to answer these questions, right? Because we feel like we want to make sure we don't confuse anybody, but...
Yeah, which reminds me, actually, and this is for you, Mark, or for anybody else out there listening to this, I mean, feel free to reach out to us. Again, I know we're just touching on a lot of these topics and probably not spending as much time as we could, right, on really explaining them. So if we don't do a good enough job explaining it, or you have other questions, I mean, you can email us, right, Facebook at delphiglass.com.
Or maybe
you can always message us at Instagram or on Facebook.
He's on a roll. I don't want to interrupt.
Sorry, I'm trying to remember.
I shouldn't have interrupted him.
Dang it.
No, sorry.
I don't have it written down somewhere.
Did you get through it?
No, it doesn't have it. I think I got it. Okay. Or call us, or you can email. You want me to give them your email address?
It's difficult. If you do mine, they'll know yours.
I know. Oh, so
course,
is that it?
That's fine. We don't care.
No, yeah. We'll talk about it. I think in a little while we have another one that we were going to talk about, and we were asking them to maybe reach out to us.
Okay. All right. Okay. But now you've talked so long.
Yeah. Sorry.
I've lost track of where I'm at.
You're on Olivia from Pennsylvania.
I think I just did Mark from Michigan, didn't I?
Oh, was it? Oh, is it me? Doesn't make a difference. All right, I'll jump in. Olivia. This question's from Olivia from Pennsylvania. My soldering iron tip gets black and gunky super fast. How can I keep it clean so my solder beads are smooth and shiny? Yeah, this is what everybody struggles with. And I find it interesting, a lot of people in the stained glass world, they're not familiar with this little product we're going to show you, which I joke around all the time is probably the cheapest thing you'll ever buy when you're doing stained glass.
And really the most
probably
helpful
the most
thing.
Helpful, right? I mean, it really is pretty good.
It's called a tinning block. Salamoniac block.
Yeah, some kind of ammonia, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I was just going to show that, because it's just it looks like a bar of soap, kind of.
It does.
I can't get this one open, because I brought one from the classroom, and I'm going to tear it.
And don't lick it.
Don't lick it.
I said it was assault, so don't.
Okay, well, this is silly. Oh, there, okay.
Oh, there it goes, okay.
So this one's already used a little bit, because I was just going to show you. But see, it just comes, and it is gritty, so it is some kind of
so how do you use
salt. Well, let me just show you. So this is one that has been used. So we didn't bring a soldering iron, but all you're going to do when your soldering iron is on and hot, you're just going to take it and rub it up and down on this block, and you can tell how it's grooved out from someone trying to clean there, and it will take that residue off, and you'll see, it may take, depending on how gummed up your iron is, it could take a while, because I've had people where it literally took me 10 or 15 minutes just to keep going. You're going to want to be in a very ventilated area if your tip is really dirty, because it will start smoking as it comes off, right? So, but it cleans it, and it is one of the best things to rectify that soldering iron that might have hot spots.
It'll
or cold
add
spots.
years to the life of your tip of your soldering iron. That is for sure.
Too, this is just an interesting tidbit.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I inherited a lot of my stained glass tools and things, and in this cabinet I had, that it had all these used soldering iron tips, and they all looked like they'd exploded. They were rusted, and then the barrel of it had blown out. There were literally slit holes in it. And someone told me, the person that I had inherited from was no longer around. But when I first started working here, they told me that was the way they used to clean them, was they would dip them in flux. And it would clean them really well, but it's the acid would start eating away at the metal, and then after a while they just almost like blew up.
Yeah, they just kind of like disintegrate.
Isn't that interesting?
Right?
I know that was way off the topic, but I thought that was interesting and just made me think of it. So.
Oh, which made me think of one other thing too, real quick. And so when you are cleaning the tip, it does help to add a little solder to the tip as you're working it. So technically, what we're doing is re-tinning the tip, is how they refer to it, right? Like you probably didn't know it, but when you bought your soldering iron brand new, it already had solder on the tip. It was a lead-free solder, but it was already covered with solder. And so you're kind of like burning that black gunk off and recoating it with solder. So it really will, like I said, add a long years to the life of your soldering iron.
Because lots of people think they need a new tip. That's the story we always get. It's not heating well and all that.
And we're happy
it's just because it's dirty.
And we're happy to sell you a new tip.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so now it's me. Okay, Lillian from Wisconsin. I keep ending up with tiny pinholes in my solder lines. Even after I go over them a few times, they pop up somewhere. Once again, this has kind of to do with flux. And since I am the fluxer here, and I kind of go a little overboard with it, I do know that's why it happens. There's just too much flux. And so when it happens to me, you can try to go over it, and like you said, and you can kind of heal up some, and then others pop up down the road. Just take a towel or a rag and wipe some of your flux off, and then try to go back. Don't add any more. Try to go back, and I think you'll find that's really going to help, because that is one of the pitfalls of using too much flux.
Yeah, and then I would say, then going forward, try to use less flux, right? I mean, I know Val and I, we kind of joke about it. I use like the smallest amount of flux ever, right? So you'd be surprised at how long you can solder with it, and how you can get nice smooth smooth seams without using a ton of flux. So
okay.
Good one. That was good.
Okay, good.
So now we got a bunch of questions.
Yeah, we got
similar to do with glass cutting, right? So we have Kim from Maryland, right? Is this me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi there. I purchased some too large, it says, glass rondelles. My fault, I should have paid closer attention to the size. Can I cut them in half, or with a circle cutter? I'm just worried that the score line will go haywire. Yeah, I mean, that's a challenge. If you're not familiar with rondelles, they're blown, right? They're something that is blown, and there's a puntee attached to them, so the centers are usually thicker than the outside edges of the rondelle. So they're a round circle, right? And cutting that I could see would be a challenge.
Yeah,
right?
We said, I think if in half, I think would be more manageable than in trying to cut the
circle down. Right?
Yeah. So in half, I would say, a tile saw would probably be your best bet. It would be, you would just be sawing the whole thing. You're not going to worry about scoring and then having to break it and have your run. So tile saw works really well. We use it a lot around here for certain things.
Yeah.
But trying to use a circle cutter, like Roy pointed out when we were talking about it, usually you have to center that part, and sometimes you have a suction cup that tries to hold it in place, but with the rondelle kind of being raised in the middle, because it's kind of the pool of glass that melted unevenly, I don't know how you can really do that and
I'm not
score
sure
it.
I would agree, right.
So you said
think
maybe
circle cutter, I thought.
Just score by hand.
I would score by hand.
Draw your circle with something, and then try to
I mean, I've seen them cut. I've seen people cut them in half with a cutter and going across. But again, you could see where that's going to be.
Yeah, you're going to go. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to go up and down, or even the same thing as you're doing the outside curve. My experience has been that on curves in particular, like when things break wrong, it usually breaks on the outside of the curve. So again, if that breaks incorrectly, I mean, I think the odds are pretty good that it won't break into the rondelle, right? It would break just towards the lip. And then you have to do some grinding. You're gonna have to do some grinding anyways, but
that's our best.
But neither one of us have done it, right? We haven't tried to trim down a rondelle. So I mean, I've had to grind one before, but it wasn't like I was taking off an inch or something. So, but yeah, hopefully that was good enough.
Oh, I got all that stuff all over me.
You got the next one?
Susie.
Yeah.
From Michigan. I have a very hard time cutting texture glass, even if I cut it on the back side. Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Lots of people do.
Welcome to glass cutting.
Welcome to the world of what sometimes works and what doesn't. I don't know, right? Certainly we appreciate that because it happens to us as well.
Oh, sure.
But I sometimes think looking at your score line again, making sure you're not gouging, making sure your pressure is consistent from the very start to the very edge, and no, letting up and pushing too hard. I mean, those are the things I would focus on, and then, that's all I got.
Yeah, I think that. No, I think you probably hit on it. I think so a lot of times in textured glasses, which is obvious, right? That you can't always just run your cutter over them. A lot of times, also, a lot of the textures are on the roller of the glass. So when it rolls across the glass, it creates the texture. So then you have to do the smoother side, which is the back side, which I think is sort of what you're hinting at. And then it's not as favorable to cutting the back sides. And my personal experience is I see people. They push harder, I think, when the texture is a little uneven and a little rougher because they feel they have to. But I don't think you have to. I think you said it perfect. Like nice even score. You always want to think about doing that. And sometimes I think that means also slightly on the lighter side, right? Yeah. Not so heavy-handed, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's a challenge for all of us, right?
Right.
But thanks for the question. And then is it me, Gary from North Carolina?
Uh-huh.
Oh, this is good for me.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Gary from North Carolina, can you design a ball-shaped lamp on a flat paper? Can you? Is he asking? Can I personally, or is he asking in general? Can a person do that? Right. Well, I guess it's impossible, right? I mean, you can't do a sphere on a flat piece of paper. I mean, that's what people. People have been dealing with this for forever, drawing maps of the globe, right? I mean, so it's near impossible, but you can get close. I actually just printed this off real quick just to show you. These are called gores, right? This shape is called a gore, and then so this is different ways of doing like a shape. So if you put these 6 pieces together, that will give you a sphere. Now, from the top, if you're looking down on it, it looks more like a hexagon, right? Because of the 6 sides, but it's near impossible. Of course, the more you go, the less you notice the shape. It's going to look a little bit more rounded. This you could I've just found this online, right? So you could print this off if that's what you're really trying to do. But I was telling Val, what we used to do, what people would do is, let's say you have if you're making a lamp, right? Is that what we said? A ball-shaped lamp.
Yep.
I'm assuming you have a mold, right? So maybe it's just a ball that you bought at somewhere. So you could take the ball, cover the entire thing with masking tape, right? And then you draw your design onto the masking tape, take an X-Acto knife and cut out each shape. And then that's the shape that's going to fit that sphere. Now, it's still not going to be perfect because glass is flat, right, and not curved, but it'll get you a whole lot closer. The other thing was we had talked about, there was a company called Warden that made lamp patterns and molds, and they had just almost exactly what I was talking about. They had a pattern for doing a globe.
Yeah.
You could, if you found one around, you could use that as a template and just redraw on top of your own design, right? At least it would give you the shapes that you have to sort of do. Yeah, but it's not an easy thing, but it's doable, right? I mean, I think you get pretty close.
Yeah.
Right,
okay, so that was Chris from Michigan. Do I need both breaker pliers and running pliers, or can I get by with just one?
Well, I think you need both, or you need all of them, right? You need every.
Well, we feel that way.
Every plier we sell, I think.
Yeah.
That's probably the best.
But the one thing we don't use much around here is just a straight breaker.
Yeah, we don't use a straight breaker.
We use a combination breaking tool. We call it a breaker grozer. So it functions as a breaking plier, but it also has the serrated edges.
Yeah, I brought some in just so, because
Yeah.
in case, someone out there doesn't really know exactly what we're talking about, right? So these are running pliers. You can tell by it's got this little bolt here and then rubber tips, right, that cushion the glass. They're curved slightly. These work with the score line, right? So the score line would be here. You come on, this is how you break them. This is just a breaker. So these pliers are kind of similar to what you might think of like regular pliers, and they're pretty smooth, right? The inside here is pretty smooth. They're pretty even. Again, this is for, let's say I had this piece of glass and I scored the corner and I needed to break that corner off. I'd come in and just kind of pull that off, right, with a breaker. So if you're just comparing these two, they do slightly different things. I mean, wouldn't you agree? So,
yes.
So in that regard, I would say, yeah, you probably should have more than one pair of plier. But as Val pointed out, around here we use this pair of plier. These are called breaker grozers, and if you just look at them in comparison, they are slightly different. So they are a breaking plier like this one is, but they're also a grozer. I don't know, this is probably hard to see because they're small, but they have these little serrated teeth in here. Excuse me, I got some in my throat. Little serrated teeth, and it's used for grozing, which is nibbling or chewing the glass, right? So shaping, right? So like a file almost. So,
right.
If you wanted to make this sharp corner round, you could come in and just kind of grind on it and stuff and chew on it.
The grozing part's really nice too. I think people who do a lot of lead like that tool because copper foil you need to grind because you need to put your pieces butt right up to each other and smooth, and when you're doing a lead channel, then if you just need to bite off a little piece to make it fit, actually the fact that it's kind of chewed helps sort of bite into the lead channel, and so there's no reason.
And you don't see it because
you don't see it. You don't need to grind it, and so the grozing part of that tool is real helpful for that.
Yeah, so we would say, yeah, you need two, but we would say probably, running pliers and breaker grozers. Well,
we would say,
that's what we prefer, but, what a Valentine.
Right.
So who's next? Is it me or you?
It's you.
Oh, dang it. Susan from Michigan. I'm making a panel with a very long, this is a good question, right?
Good follow-up.
Very long, straight border, and my running pliers don't seem to be working well for such a long cut. What's the best way to get a clean break on a long, thin strip of glass? Yeah.
Well, let's say first of all, because you showed this running plier.
I showed them.
Okay,
right?
but this isn't the only style out there. So we're going to talk about this one, but there is one that doesn't have this adjustable screw.
Oh,
right,
that's
a plastic pair that functions the same way, but I'm not exactly sure what you're going to say, but on these long, thin cuts, I think one of the problems is that when you use this tool kind of like you're supposed to use it, it does run that score fast. And so if there is a little bit of a stress mark or something along that score, it could shoot off, right? So often when we have those, and there's some other kind of cuts too that sort of benefit inside curves and stuff from being able to adjust this. But if you adjust this jaw, if I turn the screw to the right, you and I've had this thing where we're backwards, I know. But it opens the jaw. So now the screw is holding that jaw open. I don't know if you can see it. Where are we? But anyhow, if you open this, I always try to put it at the most open I can get it, but still make contact with the glass. A little bit of, then, I know, don't do that.
I know, we do this so different, it's funny.
Then put it on the glass, and then I crack it. So it actually slows the run down, so it gives you a little more control over how fast that run goes, which sometimes can help. Then maybe I crack it from this end, then maybe I'll turn the glass around and try to crack it from the other end and sort of work it that way. Yeah. That can help a little bit. But if you just use these set as normal and just go ahead and try to run it like you do some of the smaller, shorter pieces, you're probably, it's going to go so fast that it won't be able to.
Or on a long one, it just might not run it, right? I mean, it might not run it long enough. Yeah, it might not get it all the way. I say
go from
very
both
similar
ends.
things that you're saying, right? I would go from both ends, right? So, start on one end, start the run going, right? And then come to the back end of the glass and then follow it and then have them meet. I think that works real well for especially long, thin ones.
Yeah. But once again, it's glass and, it's
going to do what it wants to do, right?
Sometimes it's just not. We're not always successful either, that's for sure.
No.
Okay.
All right. Next question, I think, is
All right, Fred from Michigan. What kind of oil should I use in my glass cutter?
I know. What kind should Fred use?
What it really is, right, is they refer to it as a light machine oil.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to necessarily be one that's designed for glass cutters. We sell.
Yeah, we happen to sell something.
Yeah,
right?
we sell it. It makes it easy, and that's
this one here made by CJ's, I think it says. So I think one time we sold more than one brand,
yeah,
right?
we did.
This is the one I just grabbed off the shelf. But CJ's cutting oil, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
a light color, weight, that's pretty good. But, I know this one, Val and I struggled on a tiny bit because we don't use any oil. So I know we didn't want to open up this big can of worms about oil versus not using oil. But I've never used oil in a cutter. And here at Delphi, we cut hundreds of square feet of glass a day and we don't use any oil.
And we use all the different, just because it's an oil cutter.
Yeah, we
use them dry. We just use them dry. And so
I know. It's controversial, but
yeah. So I say if you use it,
that's how we are,
if that's, because that's often what it is. That's how people were taught. Some people really believe that it's beneficial to the quality of the score, then in turn the quality of the break they get. It's to each their own.
Yep.
I mean, we sell it, and but like I said, get it from, that's what we would use here if we were using it. That's what we sell. So otherwise, it's just a light machine oil.
Yes.
Okay.
That was pretty good. Yep.
Okay, you need to get on your horse here and get going.
I know, one of us does, right? Okay, Jennifer from Ohio. I've always used copper foil, but I want to do some panels in my home. Do you use different sizes of lead for the inside versus the outside? How do you choose what size lead to use? I get it. So really she's just wondering, the width. What we're talking about is what's called the face of it, right? So the width of the lead, and we talked about it a tiny bit this morning. I think you make the same decisions you would make if you're doing copper foil, right? I mean, you choose a side of a width of foil, which affects the solder seams, right? How wide the solder seams look. So I think you would do the same thing with the lead. I mean, some of it might have to do with, I was gonna say with textured glass, but I think it really is just, if you're
the look you like.
Yeah, the look you like,
the
right?
The seam you want.
Yeah, how wide do you want your seam?
Yeah.
Or also the second part of that too is how comfortable you are working with it, right? So with lead, with copper foil, if there's a tiny gap, we can fill that in with solder. But with lead, you can't have any tiny gaps. So again, the narrower the lead is, your margin of error just drops, right? So your cutting has to be a little more accurate to be able to fit inside that narrower lead. So I guess a lot of it's just comfort too. Yeah. I mean, how confident you are with cutting. But
there is no real difference in terms of strength or
I don't think so.
Quality or
not really.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I mean, unless you're doing like 14-foot windows or something. But and then for the outside is some of it's similar, right? I mean, about what size cane would you put on the outside? I think our only advice would be not to use the 1/8-inch cane, like the zinc cane on the outside, if we're talking about zinc. Right, because that doesn't really add any strength, but anything above that, right?
Quarter inch is
3/8,
popular.
half inch, right? Any of those would be good. And again, some of it, that's a aesthetic decision. What look do you want? And the other might be with the zinc frame on the outside is, again, if you're putting it in an existing opening, which zinc is going to work, right? I know in like when people are putting windows or panels into an existing window, they do use lead a lot of times on the outside because they can trim the lead to make it fit into the window better, right? I mean, you can literally just shave some of the lead off so it fits inside your window. So again, that might be a decision.
Yeah, good one. Okay, Jessica from Arizona. I want to use a variety of glass textures in one panel. Will the different thickness cause a problem with my lead cane?
It could, right? I mean, it could cause an issue. So there are leads so the center part of the lead cane is what's called the heart, right? And then so they come, for the most part, they're pretty standard as far as the height of them, but we do sell some that are, high hearts, I think is how they refer to them, that are deeper, right? So you can fit the glass in there, but
overall,
really,
I would think.
Unless it's really,
then this is that.
Yeah, that's why I grabbed that. So.
This is called a fid. And this end of the fid is often used to put in the channel of a cane and sort of open it a little wider if you have a piece. Because I know sometimes in framing with the zinc, if you didn't, when you solder your copper foil even, sometimes you can have a piece that's a little higher than the other or whatever. So this just allows you to go in and kind of wiggle and open the area of the channel that to accommodate that little bit of extra thickness. So this would also be something that you could use without, what is your thought about switching sizes within one panel?
Of lead? Oh yeah, you could do that. I mean, that's really not that uncommon. So some of it's a aesthetic decision. Some is maybe just a construction. You gotta need a lead that fits the glass you're using. It's not that uncommon. I don't think it'd be that noticeable, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think so
depending.
either. Yeah.
So, good.
Okay.
All right, now we got some fusing questions coming up.
Okay, I might have lost my place.
We're on, I think, Ian from Washington.
Oh, okay, good. Oh.
I know Ian, right? So,
Yep.
do you want me to read this one? So
Yeah.
I'm fusing a 12 by 20 inch panel, pretty good size, right? It's warm white on clear. Every time I fire it, and he wrote down 1400 degrees for 20 minutes, it bows up. The top edge and bottom edge literally lift off the shelf. The shelf is perfectly flat and the piece is bowed like a banana. This seems impossible. What could possibly cause this? I mean, our first reaction was, we have no idea, right?
Yeah,
So,
and I'm not sure we get it. That's the
that's the other
problem
part
too,
of it.
because he did send pictures.
we appreciate the pictures. Ian.
Yeah,
Thanks for sending
really,
those.
but it's still a bit unclear to us.
Yeah,
so
we're not seeing the actual.
so this is where we were going to say,
much,
reach out if you want. It's roy@delphiglass.com.
I think Ian has my email, I think. So.
And it's val@delphiglass.com. But yeah, because it's interesting. I don't. When you say it bows up like a banana, it makes me feel like it's like
up, right?
Yeah, like if the shelf is here, then your piece of glass is like this, and I don't see that in the picture. So I'm kind of confused a little bit, but your temperatures, we talked about this. We don't know. Right?
Yeah, the 1400 degrees seems too low to be really causing too much real movement in the glass, right? We were wondering maybe if it was a quarter inch, the fusing quarter inch rule, right? That if that was a problem, right? So maybe the glass is shrinking to get to a quarter of an inch, and of course the edges heat up faster than the centers do, so the edge could look thicker, and then so that might look like it's rolling up, which I think it does kind of look sometimes like it's rolling up a little bit, but
I don't know.
But I don't know, 1400 degrees isn't hot enough to do that, and if
No,
you have
20 minutes,
and 2 layers of glass should be around a quarter of an inch unless they're too thins, but that's why we were saying, Ian, we're not. But if you want to, reach out to us.
No, it's interesting.
We can try to give you a little bit more detail
we like
if we can.
These kinds of things.
Oh, we
too,
like being challenged. That's for sure. But this one was a little tough for us. If you're really firing at 1400, it sounds like maybe the kiln's running hot. Would be my
Which
guess,
could
right?
be,
So
something you might want to look at
but
too.
Yeah, reach out to us and we'll try to get back with you.
Okay, Lisa from Michigan. There's a crack in my favorite casting mold. Can it be saved?
Yeah, we have some Val and I both have some really interesting experiences with cracked molds, right?
Yes.
I mean, I have one. I know you said you did too. I have one that we use in the classroom. I've been using it for, I bet 3 or 4 years. That has a crack in it, and it still has a crack in it.
And it's a big one. It's a big
Monstera leaf.
Monstera.
Yeah, yours is even a casting mold.
It's a casting, and isn't that the question here?
It doesn't say anything about casting. Oh, it does say casting mold. You're right.
That's what I thought. So that also sort of makes a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, because we're going hotter, right?
Yeah, but I have that leaf casting mold. It's this big, and you can feel it when you pick it up. I can hear it that it's cracked, and it has been cracked for over a year, and we just keep using it. You try to treat it kindly and not bang it or anything, but. As far as patching, did you bring some?
Yeah, I did bring in. So we do have this product called Bisque Fix. So this is made by Amico. So, a company that does a lot of things for the ceramic world. And this actually works really, really quite well. But what it doesn't do is, like if you had a chip out of your mold, you could take this, fill it in, smooth it out, and that would look okay. But just a crack, if you take this stuff and put it over the crack, it will hold it together, but it's going to alter your design of the mold, right? You're going to cast that in there. You could put it on the backside, which is what I've done before, on the backside of the mold where the crack is at, and it will hold it together. It actually holds up pretty well. But, as Val and I have pointed out, I don't know if you need it, right? make
I
yourself
don't
feel
know,
better, I
yeah,
guess.
I-
I know
yeah.
how much you've invested in the mold, right? This stuff is...
Right, but sometimes, especially at the casting mold, I'm not convinced how smooth you can get it. And what
I
that
don't think you
might-
get it super smooth.
I don't know
That's
what
not-
that would do to your finished
Yeah, yeah.
product then too.
But you could, like I said, you could patch hold it together on the back side of the mold. So, just
you
slather
wanna-
it over the crack seam and
Yeah.
do that. So,
Yeah. Do you want to pick a couple? Because we're getting late.
we're, what, do you want to just finish up the
yeah.
fusing ones?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Hey, so, you're next then. You got Sarah from Oregon.
Sarah from Oregon. What's the best way to clean kiln wash off, and how often should I be redoing my kiln wash?
Yeah, we weren't 100% sure, Sarah from Oregon. We were 100% sure, like, was it just, I guess everything, right? Shelves or a mold or whatever.
Right, so let's address if it's a
shelves, right?
shelf
Yeah.
or a slumping mold. Either or, right?
Okay.
A slumping mold. I would say you do it when it needs to be done. Well, I mean, it's one of those things where I think it starts to show you when it's
shelf will
dry.
definitely show you,
Yeah, when
right?
it's starting to become so dry, it'll start to, I always liken it to like the way paint looks when it starts to blister and dry out and flake. I mean, that's sort of what your kiln shelf will start to do. You'll see little areas.
Yeah, bare spots.
Yeah, when I see that, or even sometimes a little bit of cracking in that kiln wash surface, then it just starts to tell me it's starting to become unstable because it's dried out so many times. I mean, it's been fused and now it's becoming so dry that, so then that's my sign where I will just, take the kiln wash, try to scrape off the old kiln wash and then redo it. So I sort of wait till I see some evidence. I don't just do it after 20 firings. I mean, I just wait till I see some
Yep.
kind of evidence that it looks like it might be dried out. And so then we just remove it. We try to remove as much of the old stuff as you can. We use a putty knife sometimes. It's a plastic one. You want to be careful, especially on your shelf. You don't want to gouge,
Yeah.
So just try to loosen it up a little bit. And then the other thing that we use that really can help is this, they call it wall sand. I always called it
drywall screen.
Drywall screen
Yeah,
is
I think
what I
that's really
called
what
it.
it is. That's-
but they call this one says wall sand, so whatever. But it's very pliable. It's really it scratches. It doesn't scratch, but I mean it'll loosen up stuff and help smooth any ridges if you have old
it's just
stuff.
abrasive enough.
Yeah,
right,
just
to-
abrasive enough. So it can be real helpful. And then it also works really well in molds because you can bend it and then sort of get in the corners of the sides of molds or whatever to remove. So you want to try to remove as much as you can and then...
I mean, my advice is to try to do this wet if you can, right? So just because all of these things are going to create some dust that's going to get in the air that you probably really don't want to, breathe in, right? So even the scraping with the putty knife, I always just dampen, like if it's a shelf, I'll dampen the shelf and then come in and scrape it. If it's a mold, I get a mold wet, and a lot of times I use a green scrubby, and we'll do that. I mean, the only bad thing there is, and even with the shelf, you have to dry those things out before you use them, right? So a lot of times I'll just run the kiln up to a few hundred degrees just to help dry that out. But a mold, I mean, if we're talking about a slumping mold, again, you don't need to replace the kiln wash until you start to see it, as Val said, kind of, compromise, right? It starts peeling or coming up or something, so. Hopefully that's good. Do I got the next one?
Yeah.
Chloe from Michigan, how do you know how much to overhang the glass over the mold when draping it? I get this question asked a ton of times.
Yeah.
So I think what we're talking about, we sell several different draping molds here. I just grabbed this floral former, I think is how they refer to this one. And so the question is, right, so if you're draping a piece of glass over this, how do you know what size to do it, right? So, I mean, I guess, you could experiment, right? You could just, take a piece of glass, cut it, and do it. But I do this on any kind of a draping mold. I just measure it, and it really helps to have more of a flexible kind of tape measure here. And then I just come in across the side, across the top, across the bottom, right? So this is like almost 16 inches, right? 15 3/4. You don't want to make your piece that big. Unless you want it to hit the shelf, because if you make it that size, it will hit the shelf as it comes because it's going to stretch a tiny bit. So if you want it to make it as big as you can, but still fit this mold and not hit the shelf, right? Then I make it I just subtract an inch from whatever size I get here.
That's what I was going to say, an inch or a half an inch?
Yeah,
An inch.
I do an inch. I think
okay.
an inch is good because the glass is going to stretch, right? I mean, a little bit. It just is. I mean, part of it also is your firing schedule, right? As long as you're not getting too hot to make it stretch more, that would be bad. And then, so the thing, though, to remember real quick is, so let's say I made this 15 inches. It is not, if you're cutting a square, it's not a 15-inch square, right? It's 15 inches diagonal across the 2 points. So across the 2 corners. So that's what you have to make sure. So I don't know, you have to do some geometry, right? To figure out what size square that is, right? A squared plus B squared equals C squared, right? We all remember that, right, from school. But if you're doing a circle, then that makes it real easy, right? So here you could do a 15-inch circle, right? That would be pretty easy. But if it's square, it has to be diagonal, right? Not the flat edges of the square. So
Right. Good one.
was that good?
Good one.
What else?
Okay, so the last one.
Last one.
We got to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Stephen from Michigan. What are the most important things to be aware of if I'm using a kiln in a non-climate controlled space?
Yeah, right? Yeah, we're in Michigan, if you guys aren't familiar, right? So it's, it gets cold here in the winter, so it gets real cold. And we often hear, I mean, I've heard this many times from customers. They're like, well, I'm going to buy a kiln and put it in my unheated garage, and during the winter, I'm going to warm up my, garage. Well, it's not going to do that, right? I mean, it doesn't radiate that much heat, so it's certainly not. Or I know, I've talked to plenty of people that have put them in pole barns, right, that, again, that are not climate controlled. I think for us, I think cold is probably a bigger issue than
exactly.
hot,
Cold
right?
is more the issue. And so the question is too, is that, well, do they adjust the firing schedule based on the fact that now it's in an environment where it's, below freezing, maybe 32 or below freezing. That, I don't know. I mean, I've heard different things on that. Personally, when I think of the kiln, I mean, maybe will it heat up a little more slowly or whatever, but I still think temperature's temperature, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you need to go to 1450 to get a full fuse on something, just go to 1450. And when your kiln reads 1450, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think it would have to be really cold for the kiln not to be able to keep up with heating it up. I think the bigger issue is cooling down, and I think that's where you might adjust the firing schedule, right?
Yeah.
Because if your kiln just cools off too quickly, right, there you run the risk of thermal shock or not annealing it properly. So that's where I would adjust firing schedules, right? I would make sure I'm going pretty slow on the way down. I would stop maybe even several times below the annealing temperature. Just to, again, make sure you're not cooling off too quickly.
Fast, yeah.
But otherwise, again, if it's too hot, I mean, that's going to affect the cooling too, but not in a bad way, right? It's just going to take longer to cool down if you're in, Arizona and it's 115 degrees out,
and sometimes too, the other part of that is the glass. So if your kiln is out in the barn and it's, 30 degrees out and your glass is out there too, then I think I'd be a little more careful about how I heat it. I mean, if your glass is really freezing cold, you don't want to stick it in the kiln and maybe go as fast as you normally do because your glass is so cold, so I don't know. So I always tell people if they can bring their glass, keep your glass where it's heated. Mm-hmm. And then, don't worry so much about the kiln deal, right? Yeah,
I mean, you can always go slower, like as Val pointed out, like heating up and also definitely cooling down, right? And all you're doing is just adding time to the process, but I don't think you're doing anything other than that, right?
No, and I think when your kiln reads the internal temperature, it's the internal temperature, so you don't really need to worry about how cold it is out. So.
Well, I think we're run out of time, right? So sorry we didn't get to all of our questions, but I'm sure we'll be back and try to finish up the questions at some time. And for those of you watching, if you have some other questions or want us to elaborate on some of the things that we said, feel free to reach out to us, right?
We'll definitely do it again.
Val at Delphi Glass or
I won't interrupt you now.
Or Facebook at delphiglass.com.
Okay.
Or you can definitely get us on Instagram or just through Facebook, right? You can message us.
Or you can email Roy.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
we'll
thanks
see you guys
everybody.
later.